I would like to mention that there are certain indigenous species which are not being taken in our horticulture practices. Though the fruits are edible, there are several such fruits. Those are otherwise used for some different purpose, but it is not been studied. It is not been given research importance, and they are neglected. So these type of changes are always there. Means I cannot say that whole world should have the biodiversity, whatever is existing in natural condition. We cannot protect because we are also spreading. Our kind of population is also increasing. We are also capturing natural areas and putting our houses there, our farmhouses there, and we are planting whatever plants of our interest. So we are definitely changing the soil characteristic, microbial diversity. Those are all changed because of the action. Unfortunately, first person to get into the anatomical part of how the riverfront is being built everywhere. They build on the both the end wherever you want to enjoy that water pulled from somewhere else, not even that belonging to the river. So that water is being poured in and it's a pool rather. Having riverfront is has become pool in India, unfortunately. You will have barrages on the both the side to check that water not flowing out of the river. And then the water is being poured in from somewhere other source, maybe nearby lake or some other river altogether. And then riverfront is being developed, all concretized. The concern here is riverfront is all concretized 2 feet width of the concrete and it goes straight down to the basal rock where it rests just to ensure that there won't be any erosion in the area, bank edge. And then of course, entire bank is a concretized one wherein people can have walkway and then small green patches. Even they put artificial grass also on that just to have the greenery in your eyes.
Unmute yourself, Mr. Vasant Kumar.
My question is it possible for us to use sewage of megacities, transport it in tankers to wastelands and desert areas so that we can enrich the soil and also grow native species of trees, etc. Take for example Kejri in Rajasthan. It is a very wonderful tree that is multi-utility. And like that, in Karnataka is the second largest next to Rajasthan in wastelands. There are so many wastelands that can be converted into green patches by enriching the soil, by transporting sewage from major cities, so that we will solve both the problems, solving the megacity problem and also enriching the soil. Your considered opinion, sir. I am aware about other things also, about smell, etc., but the searing heat of the desert and also the wasteland where people don't go or animals don't go, the nature will take care of itself and see that the soil is enriched. Your considered opinion, sir?
Yes, sir. Actually, I am against the tree translocation as such. I don't know. I don't prefer that because see, you can grow trees in the area if you have wasteland. Actually, wastelands in our country, real supporter of rarest rare biodiversity. We never know that. And we call it wasteland, but there is nothing like wasteland, first of all. And those are, ecologically very important areas supporting certain type of plants and animals, which are otherwise not seen in forest, not seen in our areas like agriculture zones. But to lift trees from one place and putting it in altogether different habitat is again a stressful for that tree to survive.
So now, sir, I'm not talking about transplantation.
Yes, you can. Yes, sir. I'm just coming to that. I have another thing to say. Wasteland can be converted into fertile land by introducing very systematically composting there and putting several such primary successor herbaceous plants there, and then that area can be converted into the forest land. It can done. Regarding trees, our culture is to live along with the tree. So we try to safeguard those trees, those surfaces, soil surfaces. Even within urban areas also, we are leaving it alone without covering by paver concrete and concretizing. If you leave that area, tree will survive because All these native trees are not, dying before 100 years. They are always living 150, 250-year-old trees. So if you allow any neem tree, for example, it can grow up to 200 years or 250 years. So my always point is that we don't have 100 years in the future. We don't know that because the way we are living this life, this consumption of our natural resources. But one tree is very sure that if given soil is there, it can survive for a single tree I'm talking about. So sag, for example, teak. Teak, how much old we can expect? There is a teak tree forest which is 1,000 year old, and there are 850 to 1,000 year old teak forests, teak trees are there. We cannot simply imagine this because teak for us is wood giving. Just plant it after 20 years, cut it, whatever stumps coming out, again you cut it after 10 years. So this is what is our approach so far. This agroforestry one way is good, that it was meant for extracting the wood, but our understanding of forest and the age of the tree has been reduced by that to very great extent.
That I was referring to treated or untreated sewage of megacities being transported to wastelands or desert areas for enriching the soil. I'm not talking about transplantation of
treating any pollution. Treating at source level itself is very advisable because it is very costly affair. If you are talking about collecting the sewage from urban areas and taking or carrying them, to have that, again you have to have the vehicles, and you are again having so much of shuttling of the vehicles. It will be very costly affair, rather than treating that sewage in the possible scientific methodology and reusing the material or whatever coming out, even the water for that matter, to the urban area itself or the gardens of urban area itself. That will be more appropriate rather than carrying that to somewhere else. That is what is my take.
In many urban areas, the sewage that is running across the city is being utilized in some areas where there is land is available by farmers to grow greens and other things, vegetables and other things. That is also untreated sewage. Still,
can I answer this question? Please. Yeah, sewage, to carry it is very heavy. So what is done is it is treated. Sewage treatment plants are there, and there are other people who take the wet waste from all places and they convert it into manure. This definitely is a good idea, both from the sewage treatment and the wet waste treatment. Is definitely a great idea for the government to collect it and put it in wastelands such that the native species get the nourishment they need, and put it in barren lands. However, right now, we do not have a policy where the government collects all these manure which is getting created in all these places. This is my personal observation.
I understand, ma'am. And most of the trees, for example, in Mysore, 450 tons of waste is produced.
Yes.
Half of it can be converted into manure.
Yes.
Soil rich with nutrients.
Yes.
But unfortunately, not all of it is being, for example, sewage. So much of sewage is being let into the water bodies in Mysore. It is not being done. Not all the STPs are actually working. It's only for namesake that they have. And unfortunately, we are eating such dirty food, greens and other things. If you test them for various types of diseases, bacteria, you will find most of it is containing all these things. Now, what I'm saying is, it is possible to transport. Ultimately, what happens is, when those trees grow, they will grow and give you. For example, one tree, a grown-up tree, gives oxygen for 134 years to a man if he is alive. This is the kind of thing we have. So we will have to stop concretizing city areas where, for example, race courses in city areas. Some of the major cities have such, it's a waste. It can be converted into a wonderful lugs and also golf courses. And those things can be transported anywhere outside because it's a very few persons' utility. Such policy decisions will have to be taken. And I urge that people like you, scientists, will have to manage these things. Please. Thank you.
There is also a need for the government to make laws, and again, my personal opinion that they have, instead of giving freebies, they should buy this from the sewage treatment plants and the solid waste management companies and give it to farmers or put it in waste or put it in barren lands and make them nutritious.
You're right, ma'am. And I have also suggested that the Paura Karmikas who collect these waste, they may be made to take these manures to the doorstep of people who have got pots and other things, who are fond of greenery, and they can sell it for some nominal price.
Yes,
That will
give
be
it for
even.
free. Let them give
Even
it for
that.
free.
Yes,
Because why
yes.
use pesticides and fertilizers, chemical fertilizers? They should give it for
Fine.
free. Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
How can indigenous trees plantation help agricultural development and also solve food insecurity?
I would like to mention that there are certain indigenous species which are not being taken in our horticulture practices. Though the fruits are edible, there are several such fruits, those are otherwise used for some different purpose. But it is not been studied, it is not been given research importance, and they are neglected. I can give you the example. The second largest biofuel tree is growing in India wildly, but we always talk about another species, that is the biofuel we are getting from Brazil. That same species is also growing at Jatropha curcas, is also growing at India, but we don't propagate. We never try to increase the production. The second largest that I am talking, which is in larger number all along the streams and rivers, is Deris pinnata or Pongamia pinnata. It is also a biofuel tree, but we never go into the production of it. We never try to increase how we can increase the number of fruits of that. There are Millusa tomentosa, another species with very tasty fruit, but those are restricted to forest areas. The commercialization aspect of that tree is not been exploited or not been studied through. So there are several such examples we have in India, widely growing in large number, but not utilized and identified by the horticulturists. Thank you, sir.
I'd like to add to your question, Shmail. We have been having a lot of urban migration. Previously, people living in villages had access to these indigenous trees and shrubs. So they had overall nutrition going to them. Now with urbanization, the Indian families are losing more than 70% of their nutrition that they used to get. Previously, every household used to grow their own leafy vegetables or have a gooseberry tree in their house, a curry leaf tree in their house and all. But right now, due to urbanization and people living in flats, a lot of this nutrition has gone out of their tables and it's impacting health in a big way in India.
So what are the actions the government takes to protect the indigenous trees and vegetation in India?
Actually, Forest Department has realized over the period of time that in India, awareness regarding our native species and their survival, I think it is now 20-30-year-old in the practice. Since last 30 years, we have taken care of those species which are very rare in the tissue culture or any other advanced, say, seed technology program. Those are studied properly, and the propagation, because there are several reasons for certain species for not to grow into the large. Seed dormancy is another thing. Fertility as such or seed production is another problem. So they try to overcome these problems scientifically. Forest Department has given such projects to various institutes across the India, and they are into the propagation of those trees, and they are trying to put the sapling in the same habitat, reintroducing to the same habitat and increasing the number. But of course, ecologically, those numbers are also need to be studied, because there are several such proportions of the species that if it is 1:100 of another, you need to maintain that 1:100 ratio among the two species. So that is another ecological aspect to it. But as sir is asking about whether it has been taken care of, yes, I will say they have identified several number of species, and this since last 30 years, the conservation efforts are in the practice.
Can I add to that?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So India is a very vast country, and the indigenous species of every location is slightly different depending on whether they are hills. They're very different if they are hills and plains and other tropical and other besides the seaside. However, still there is a kind of a tropical plantation across the country. And yes, the forest department is making an effort, but it is very unfortunate. The awareness and the sensitivity right from the top layer of the government to the bottom layer is the percentage of people who actually understand the gravity of the situation is probably 1 or 2%. And that's a reality we need to face. Number two, there is a need that every 50 kilometers, the government needs to keep botanical gardens of around 50 acres to 100 acres, which will be a place to protect the indigenous species of that locality. And it should be open to the local zoologists, botanists, children, people who are passionate to work there, to volunteer there, to contribute. This is the need of the hour. This is a very urgent requirement, an immediate requirement. The government is giving certain lands to certain people who would like to make it into parks. But my own experience has shown that due to lack of awareness, if there is a local village tank, they fill it up and they make a playground. They cut out the local species and they try to bring in species, as Dr. Jitendra said, from a Brazil or a Africa or a Portugal. This awareness today is very low, and the government needs to take immediate action. And even if they're giving some lands, my experience is people are taking these lands for real estate purposes. And the people who are very rarely the people who are taking these lands understand the importance of indigenous species. I have seen people, putting 10 acres of neem trees, 10 acres of eucalyptus, even when they have taken from the government. So, and riverfronts are not being protected as they need to be protected. Trishant, you can talk a little bit about that. Because see, this is a platform, I request people to not take it that we are judgmental. I request people to see that we're putting our point of views. You may accept it, you may not accept it, but it's a point of view which you can consider it. So Shant, it will be great if you can talk about the riverfronts.
Yes, we have essentially seen disruption of a lot of native vegetation and animal species, reptile species in the last few years. Sir and me are from the same town, and Sir is in the forefront of activist groups trying river restoration and creating awareness about the culture related to the river bodies and vegetation around it, animals around it. And every time the government changes, every time the parties change, the ministers change, every time the bureaucrats change, every time the businessmen change, there's a whole list of long problems everybody faces. So the groundwork essentially becomes very low, and other activities people start doing to gain attention for personal motives most of the time, which is a big problem for a lot of people who are trying to do groundwork. Sir will be able to mention about riverfronts and the problems we are facing in our town as an example. Sir, if I may request you, please.
Actually, when this riverfront came in 2016, we as a concerned citizen, I was unfortunately first person to get into the anatomical part of how the riverfront is being built everywhere. They build on the both the end, wherever you want to enjoy that water pulled from somewhere else, not even that belonging to the river. So that water is being poured in, and it's a pool rather. Having riverfront has become pool in India, unfortunately. You will have barrages on both the side to check that water not flowing out of the river, and then the water is being poured in from somewhere other source, maybe nearby lake or some other river altogether, and then riverfront is being developed, all concretized. The concern here is riverfront is all concretized 2 feet width of the concrete, and it goes straight down to the basal rock where it rests, just to ensure that there won't be any erosion in the area, bank edge. And then of course entire bank is a concretized one, wherein people can have walkway, and then small green patches. Even they put artificial grass also on that, just to have the greenery in your eyes. But such riverfronts actually damaging our river system. Rivers are since thousands of years natural surfaces of water harvesting. Whatever shallow areas are there in the urban area, we call it wasteland, but they are actually riverine areas. And these are very important areas during the flood time. They act as a buffer zone, as a big sponge that river carries, those are the actual body parts of the river. Lakes, small casts or shallow areas, those are meeting to the river, or any other outlet that is coming and meeting to the river. Those areas need to be identified and demarcated for not having any concrete development. Rather, we are doing reverse. In riverfront, what we do is we are making the river flow straight. The straightening is occurring, concretization is occurring. And then the same corporation will ask you to have compulsory water harvesting on your rooftop. Is it not? In urban areas in India, they are making it compulsory for every citizen to have rooftop water harvesting in the name of they are caring about the water. But what about the natural areas? Those are having this, water absorbing surfaces for thousands of meters. Over there, same government is checking that water percolation by putting concrete. So it's a completely, we are being put like this blind. You don't know the ecosystem. You don't carry any importance of the river or lake surfaces. Those are open. We need to understand the importance of these areas. They are the most crucial areas in ecosystem. Riparian surfaces we call. Riparian ecology is always the soil water interface, which is very important. And by not having that, we are rather inviting more floods in the same city. By straightening river downward, whosoever comes, those villages will have severe flood. Those are gushing through that straight rivers. So straightening is not advisable, concretization is not at all advisable, and exactly that is being done in our riverfront designs.
So I'm so glad you've been voicing it on video now, the issues that are happening. One of the sad part is we have an administrative system. We have the IAS officers. There may be a lot of good in it, but I notice sometimes that the people in charge of these, like the riverside rejuvenation, or for example, Auroville, what's happening in Auroville, we are keeping people, officers who are probably extremely capable to get a job done with the right intentions. However, their lack of knowledge, lack of sensitivity to such an important topic is making some very wrong decisions and impacting the country. This definitely needs to be addressed. I have my personal experience in Auroville is people have come from all over the world to be there, and they have contributed to our country in a very big way. People have spent 30 years, 40 years. Please, there's a link about Paul Stock posted in the chat box. He was a speaker in Vishwa Talks on the same topic, native species, indigenous species. They have spent 30 years, 50 years of their life not taking a rupee to put in their pocket or their personal earnings. They've identified indigenous species along the course, picked up 2 trees, which luckily, thanks some temple somewhere has protected it, picked up those 2 seeds, made it into 10 seeds, 10 trees, then 200, then 10,000, and made barren lands, adopted 50 acres and converted them into indigenous forests. Now, these people in Auroville are suffering and disempowered because those 50 acres of land, barren land, which they have converted, the government wants to put a road. They're saying, hey, this is a tree which is 30 years old. Move the road by 10 feet. But the officer thinks, no. 50 years ago, mother said the road should be a perfect circle. So right now, we don't care if the tree is 100-year-old, 1,000-year-old, we will cut it. The very concept with which Auroville is started, the very concept with which the sensitivity is started, is gone. Because someone sitting there as an IAS officer is not sensitive, is not knowledgeable about this situation. Prashant, would you like to add on this?
Yes, ma'am. A lot of my friends basically have been deported, blacklisted, because they are on special visas. They are Aurovillians, born and raised in Auroville in India, but they are on special visas. Nobody in Auroville can own land. I myself planted about 800 trees in a period of 2 years, along with some young individuals in Youth Center Auroville, and one IAS officer who was the ex-Health and Welfare Minister from Gujarat and ex-Education Minister of Gujarat was sent to Auroville to be the council secretary during COVID times when everything was super inactive. And she mentioned to stick to the charter which was originally mentioned. Roger Anger, one of the creators of the charter, who wrote Auroville's charter basically mentioned that Auroville shouldn't be a settlement where you build buildings and put in people like any other urban settlement. It is supposed to be a place where people give service, and slowly once they can, people will help them build their own house in a sustainable manner. And if the community comes along to build a house and save the local species and vegetation, this was completely disregarded, and she started sticking to the physical model which was presented 50 years ago. Because of that, they removed a lot of Indian rosewood, red cedar, mahogany, ebony, and a lot of critically endangered species that the NGT, the National Green Tribunal, wouldn't allow to cut. The National Green Tribunal even they passed stay orders to put a stop to the tree cutting, but it was completely bypassed and overruled, and the action still went on. Most of our work, which I did in like 2 years, basically was cut out and thrown aside for monetary benefits and for land and for making the road. The contractors are from outside, so they get benefits. The companies that make the roads get benefits. The companies basically pulling in resources from other places get the benefits, and not the Auroville citizens. The 2,500 out of 3,000 Auroville citizens were against all of this, and it still went on. And the government couldn't really do much about it on time. And yeah, the case just keeps on going today too. That's all I can add to it.
We'll do with Joel because he's on video.
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. I work in freshwater turtles in Kaziranga Tiger Reserve and its riparian condition. What my question is, like, the riparian condition, even in protected areas, are degrading in this last decade. The question is, what sustainable steps can we give the riparian community? Not just awareness, because a lot of organizations came and give awareness, sanitation, but after the awareness, they just leave and that's all. But for them to sustain that the riparian condition stays intact, what can you suggest, ma'am or sir?
I didn't follow. What is librarian?
Riparian.
That is the bank area of the water bodies.
Okay, sorry.
So actually always local communities are helpful when there is a kind of economical benefit to them. Because again, the sustenance is a major question wherein we always try to, adjust with or try to improvise or try to alter the ecosystem. Is it everywhere that is happening? Since, like, what I feel is, since we started agriculture thousands of years back, we might have started removing the naturally growing plants and putting whatever plants are of our interest. We call it agriculture. We call it civilization. We call it several such things. But in same case, same manner, we have to identify, like your area, I am not aware about that area. But in that area, what are the economically important species that can be grown? So you try to offer that if you are growing this much, you will be getting that much. So if that sort of solution, I really do not know exactly which plants are there growing, but you try to identify by interacting with them, community itself, and then finding out if there is some traditional method, if there is demand in some local pharmaceutical. If that sort of connection is being brought in, definitely the community, those are residing that area, will try to grow them more. And by growing them more, again, they are helping the riparian ecosystem, riparian plant itself to survive there in more number. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. You answer my question. Thank you, sir.
There is a question by Sarthak S. Sonu. Please shed some light on the exotic and indigenous pests and insects that lay eggs in these plants and trees and mostly form a shell-like structure similar in color of the tree bark or plant stem. How to control them? Is it ethical to remove them with help of pesticide?
It is not not at all ethical to remove the pest, means using pesticide and killing the insect. But after the observation and the studies, and if even looking at the references in the study, you will come across what are the, prey, what are the preying animals and insect or birds. If those are to be connected and brought in to the ecosystem, then probably we are covering and rather going in the natural to reduce down the population. It is not that elimination of any species at any point. It is not the elimination. Complete elimination is not at all possible because we have already bought in several such species which are very rather interesting for us. They have become our food also. Potato, we cannot simply imagine that potato has been bought from somewhere. Our ancestors, some 300 years back, Raja Maharajas were never, they were never seen this. So, pata bhi nahi hoga. Potato will look like this. Okay. They will doubt on potato whether it is edible or not. But we know how important potato has been to us now. We cannot simply think of because it is exotic. No, this is not the way to support the what you can say any plant or animal or survival of that species. We have to see that whatever we have at present, naturally, those are sustainable. Those are living there. Those are not being completely removed by putting some exotic at the place. So that is our concern. So in urban areas also, what I would say is to have those natural areas which are, for example, we will not be having any development. We can demarc that area. Corporation can take up those decisions that all along the river bank, we will not do any disturbance. We will not allow any, mall to come there, hotel to, establish there. We will not allow that. So those things are in our hand. We have to identify those areas, small patches. It may be very small patches, but that can have study spots for the natural ecosystem, for interactive zone. People from that local area, school can visit there. Children can rather understand their ecosystem. What are those native plants there for? So those small patches can be identified and put intact without any development. We call all this development, but actually it is destruction. Our development, unfortunately, is not the real development in ecological sense. It can be economical development, but those economical developments ultimately at long run will be again a disaster.
This is from Pinky Cherian. Sir, how invasive species is beneficial for industrial purposes?
All the invasive species, I should not say that they are all beneficial. No. But many invasive species have been used for certain extraction. Like for example, we have Parthenium. Parthenium is definitely having rashes and all. Those are invasive. But then again, if you find out certain characteristics, certain molecule out of that, they are being used for certain purposes in the industry. So those are being extracted or they are being collected. I'd rather planted also at many places. So things, certain species are there. See, our definition when it comes to our own survival or economics is a different. We change our definition. We don't go in the natural way of succession, natural, kind of interaction with the soil and natural way of insect, water and plant interaction. We don't go for that. We always see that how much beneficial it is. And that is why I started with a slide of those medicinally important plants. Actually, I should not have touched that subject. But we know those plants because since thousands of years, our ancestors have identified that they are native plants, but they are useful in certain curative purposes, medicinal purposes. And that is all. Similarly, we have all edible plants that we say, like mango, jamun, etc. We plant them. We have orchids of that because of our consumption. But it may not be good for soil diversity. We don't know that. We have already changed by putting only mango at certain areas, making it mango orchid. We like that. But we have slightly changed the soil composition, microbial composition in that below that canopy. So these type of changes are always there. I cannot say that whole world should have the biodiversity, whatever is existing in natural condition. We cannot protect because we are also spreading. Our kind of population is also increasing. We are also capturing natural areas and putting our houses there, our farmhouses there, and we are planting whatever plants of our interest. So we are definitely changing the soil characteristic, microbial diversity. Those are all changed because of the action.
Are these biophytes seen only on certain trees? Do they contribute to the parent tree health? This is from Andy.
Bryophytes are seen in the kind of moist forests, moist deciduous forests, or if they are very heavily evergreen moist forests where there is rainfall falling beyond say 1500 millimeter per year average rainfall. So bryophytes are seen there. They are helping to the ecosystem by several such small interaction on the stem itself. Definitely they are getting the nutrients from the stem bark, but they are attracting several species on the tree trunk. So in turn, the tree gets several benefits out of that attraction. So these type of interactions are always going on in the forest. Having bryophytes everywhere will not help again, nor that we will be able to grow them everywhere, because slightest of the temperature variation and they will all vanish. We in several such large parts of central India will not be able to grow the bryophytes on the tree trunk the way I have shown in the slide. Those are exclusively belonging to the certain shaded areas, moist areas. So we need to understand, even if it is, same species being benefited in the forest, will not be able to grow in the urban area with similar kind of diversity of bryophytes on the.
This is from Bhakti Gala. Where can we get these tree saplings?
Tree saplings are always there in the forest department. We have to identify it in our area, which is the forest department with the large number of nurseries, or rather large size of the nurseries with diverse saplings. You get into the touch with the forest officials, you will come to know that you have to travel for that. There is nothing available in the locality. So you have to travel some 70, 80, 100 kilometers for those specific saplings if you are interested in. Many times I have seen, even in my city also, there are people, those who are bringing saplings from across the state. We have several such plants coming from Bangalore, coming from Maharashtra, somewhere some nursery is there in Maharashtra. Even majority in my Baroda city, we have bigger nurseries, and those saplings are being, nurtured in the nurseries of Uttar Pradesh, not in Gujarat or Madhya Pradesh. Forget Rajasthan. But these areas are similar kind of environment. But still, because the nursery wala is belonging to the Uttar Pradesh, he is growing the sapling in their nursery, he bringing to the certain height, and then he supplies here, our state of central.
This is from Aro. From where can we get seeds of these plants?
Herbaceous species that I have shown in your area, most of our, say, for example, after winter, we have those fruiting times. So most of these herbs will have either pods or seeds itself. So you can collect those small seeds and pods and grow them. I will always advocate that we need not go every time purchasing some material from some shop. It will not be available. There are very few agriculture universities, those are giving such, medicinally important saplings available, or they might be having the collection of seeds. You can get the seed collection from forest department, or you can on your own go and collect the seeds. If you have not commercial purpose, if you have your own kind of small land and if you want to grow something, and natural succession if you allow, I am very sure about it, without disturbing or trampling the plants. If you have identified certain areas, fenced it, and if you keep it open for nature to come in, there are wonders to see and observe and happening. Those are actual happening places, I should say, because there is a lot of interaction between insects and small herbs. Those are going. There will be bird visiting that place, and you will also find a kind of cereal stage that I was describing in the slide. Some shrubs, those are going. The tree sapling, they will come on their own. You need not worry about that. Seed, many times you wonder from where this seed has come here. How come this tree is growing here? But there are several such natural factors. Those are, working, like wind is there, water or floods are major important phenomena. Flood is not devastating all the time. Actually, all throughout our wasteland or unidentified lands are being nurtured by these floods all throughout the country. We are not going to sow any seed somewhere. Okay. From my angan, I am not crossing my limit to put some plant somewhere. But who is growing there in the forest? Who is growing those plants in the hilly area, in Auroville, in Vidya, in Sahyadri? Who grows the plants? These all natural phenomena that are occurring. So let that nature takes care of that.
Sir, if anybody wants native seeds and the native trees rather than the hybrid trees, where do they get them from?
Nature, as I said, forest department at many places. Of course, as you said, ma'am, how the manager comes, that depend lot on that. Again, if the forest or forest officer, he is a botanist, definitely there will be different approach of that person. He will be collecting those seeds at very right time, because forest nurseries has to have certain number of native species throughout the year. So they take care of that. Whenever there is a fruiting in the forest, they go and collect. Seeds are being collected at regular interval in the forest, and such nurseries are able to provide the native saplings.
Shruti, would you like to ask your question before Shruti unmutes herself? In Hyderabad, you can get native species at Pragati Resorts. Recently, the My Home people have also started a beautiful place called Aranya besides this Ramanujan gold statue that they have made. These are two places where I have personally seen more than 1,000 species collected by them because of their passion. You can go and collect, you can request from their nurseries if you are interested.
Even for other than forest, this agriculture university, if you have kind of old agriculture universities with botanical gardens, you will get those things there also. Very rare trees and rare species are available with them if they are established some 50, 60 years back. So those agriculture universities, they have worked a lot.
Shruti, please.
Very, very beautiful session going on. I work as a teacher, and how can I educate my students or the local population about native species of plants and animals so that they do not harm them and they can cultivate them? Like, because the curriculum does not support this, right? So please provide me some key points, like practical points, so that I can pass on to my students and their family members.
This is based on my own experience in Baroda. Some 18 years back, me and one senior dada, he is like elder brother or fatherly figure. He used to come and we started our nature walk, initial nature walk. Wherever he used to come across some tree, interesting flowering, and if he doesn't know the name, he will come to me. He knows that I am a botanist. I've done etc. So he will come, he will call me, he will come, and then on scooter we used to go to that tree. And then I will introduce that tree. Okay, this one is from Africa, this one is from tropical America, this one is local, whatever it is, the place of origin. And then this is the flowering time, fruiting time, whatever phenology I know, my observation. And we started those, and then several of my friends they started realizing, oh, Sundays we are going to such a nice tree walk, so we would like to join. So those tree walk, ultimately we name it nature walk. Nature walk is now 1,000 plus members are there in our city. It is now very old activity of ours. We have visited several places several times. Many places several times. But we enjoy that, going again and again to the same place, looking and meeting the same trees, looking at same water bodies. Birds are there every time. So we try to identify. Some of us are from zoology background. So they talk about the bird. Someone will be talking about the insect. But this session, whenever we talk, we see that everyone is listening, because group discipline is very important. So as your teacher, you must be knowing that to make your talk interesting, you have to have certain in your hands. If I am showing you like this plant, look at this plant, how beautiful it is. If I start saying like that as a teacher, you are going to definitely attract number of students towards you, and they will look at you and they will listen what you say. So you can start. You are a teacher, you said, but you look like student to me on the screen.
Yes, I am pressure.
So you can gather. You just take them out. See, outclass room study. Whenever you are taking them out, is very essential and very important, very impactful. So try to start with your own, school campus. Then you decide upon, okay, with the permission of your teacher, that we are going this Sunday or that Saturday to that particular garden or some location. Then there will be people coming forward, meeting you and saying, madam, you are doing such a nice activity. You can visit my farmhouse. That thing will happen. This is what is happening with us. They are also offering us some this snacks also. So we are doing carpooling. We have very disciplined group. We decide upon this gathering point on Sunday morning at 6:30 or 7 we will be gathering, because we have to travel to the distances far from our city. So we go there, every car wala will bring their car, and then from there two-wheeler rider will be in the car. So we do carpooling, and this is how we are conducting. It is completely voluntarily activity. There is not a single rupee, collection never happened. And this is how the beauty of the group is. In fact, what I feel in nature, what we need to learn is whatever is free is very precious.
It is. I have done my master's in entomology, so I am very fascinated with insects. So while teaching the subject, whenever some topics comes, I ask the students and tell them, like, this is the insect and this is the quality of this insect and everything. And there is this botanical garden in Delhi. I asked the students to go voluntarily over there. I have never done the nature work, but since you suggested, I would like to do that kind
But
of thing.
asking someone rather than taking initiative on your own will really
Okay.
help. And then it will set up the trend. Otherwise, just as a teacher, if you are sending students, they will not learn anything. You have to
Okay.
rope in yourself.
Okay.
Ma'am, are you from Delhi, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. I am from Varanasi, but at present based in Delhi.
Your students are blessed. Yeah. In fact, Vishwa actually wanted to start camps for children. But when Paul had this talk, he's from Auroville and he's got some 50 acres or 150 acres of a botanical garden in Auroville where he collects seeds from across the Coromandel course and he propagates them and again sends them back for people to use it wherever they would like. So there is a program where you can go and volunteer, stay there for
Okay. What?
days, stay there for a month. So Vishwa could not take it on because of our limited bandwidth. But if you can, start camps where people from across the country can join you. You take them to this place. Let them work along with you for a week or 10 days, or even for just a weekend, just to see what is happening.
Okay.
We are contributing a huge way to this country, because even if one kid across all those camps is inspired and he becomes an IAS officer or a power person in power, that could make a lot of